I want to welcome everyone to day 2 of College Week. I'm so excited. Yesterday went amazing, and I was very happy to see how many people attended and had great questions. We're going to do it very similar to yesterday, where we'll be using the Q&A function. If you would like to put a question in there, Mary Beth and I will address those at the end. Before we get started, let me introduce myself briefly. Again, if you were not here yesterday, my name is Renee Minnick, and I'm one of the college consultants at Educational Connections. I spent 32 years in college admissions prior to coming to Educational Connections, and the bulk of my time was spent at the Rochester Institute of Technology, where I was a senior associate director of admission, and I also sat on the admissions committee. So today we're talking about standout stories. Yesterday we focused on juniors. Today we're going to be focusing on some of the younger grades, 9th and 10th grade. But I really think that this information is applicable really sort of across the board, 9th through 11th grade. So I'm glad we have some 11th grade parents in here today.
Absolutely.
Mary Beth, welcome. I'm excited to
Hello.
have you here today.
Thank you.
So Mary Beth is our expert for the day, and she's going to be sharing some wonderful insight with us today. Mary Beth Librand is a college consultant at Educational Connections. She's a former admissions specialist at the University of California, Santa Cruz. She's also a former English language arts professor and student success advisor at Century College and an essay writing coach. So she has all of this great background and skills that she brings to the position here. Mary Beth, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you approach your work with students at
Yes.
Educational Connections?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the introduction, Renee, and it's great to be here. Welcome, everybody. Today's topic is really personally significant to me because my approach is really to walk alongside students as a mentor as they explore and discover, and we really find meaningful and creative sort of pathways that they can use on their process to college. And again, like Renee said, I mean, we can, start thinking about this as early as, 8th, 9th grade, but also if, students are a little further along in the process, it's the same approach to really being to helping students have a sense of agency and be in control of their process and do what they are truly authentically interested in. So I'm excited to get into some information for you all today.
That's perfect. Thanks, Mary Beth. So let's talk about starting early. When possible, we as counselors always love to start early because we have time to do things a little bit more slowly. But can you give us your approach about why it is important to start early? What really are the benefits of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first, I want to preface this by saying starting early is not to add more to your plate and make the process more stressful for a longer period of time. That's not the reasoning behind this. It's really to allow students to make really intentional, authentic choices in a place where they don't have the stress that they have a lot of times
Right.
junior year, early senior year. There's a lot going on with testing, with college tours those years. So by starting early, there's really the time and space to really explore things and be intentional about choices. Renee and I, like Renee said, we've both worked in university admissions offices, and colleges are really looking for sustained deep interest in topics rather than just padding a resume right before they can. Admissions officers can usually tell the difference. So by having that sustained interest in sustained activities, it really helps students to have a really strong and meaningful foundation when they're ready to apply to their colleges.
Absolutely. And I love the way you talked about stress there. That's one of the things I tell families all the time. Starting early doesn't add stress, it actually eliminates it because
Right.
you can kind of navigate through some of these things early on and feel like you're ready to really jump off into the college search and application process as you hit junior year. So now we know what we want to do. But the question is now, how do we do it? I think that's the question we get the most. Okay, I know I want to explore, I know I want to do these things, but how do I go about that? And that's really, I think, the goal for today is to share with families, how do you take this idea and put it into action, whether that means you're in 9th grade or in 11th grade. So how do you help your students explore, Mary Beth?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing I do with all students in a very foundational way is to help them really focus on three things. The first one is a growth mindset. And you all have maybe heard of this. It's kind of out there in the public space right now. But growth mindset is really it's nurturing students so that they're willing to take a risk without the fear of failure getting in the way of being able to move forward by taking risks. And so it's really just looking at failure as a way to redirect your process. And it helps to keep them curious. And it's also about helping students to develop a sense of agency and self-determination so that they know that they are not being controlled by exterior circumstances, that they are really in the driver's seat. Um, the next thing I really focus on with students is that they, think about their sense of curiosity. So a lot of times our sense of curiosity, if you think back to when we were young, what did we care about? What did we want to do just when we weren't being told what to do?
Hmm.
And to follow this sense of curiosity and to encourage students, even though, they're in high school now, to really lean into that, and to run with it. So what do they do when, and they lose track of time? If we talk about like being in the flow, what do you do when you're just like in something and you love it and you're drawn to it? So allowing students the space to lean into that, and like I said, and to run with that will help to really find meaningful and authentic projects for them to be involved with. And then the third thing I focus on is not losing sight of creativity, and knowing that creativity is not just for art majors or drama majors, it's for everybody. So applying creativity to math and science and whatever they're interested in, and to really keep that sense of discovery and creativity alive.
I think that's really helpful, Mary Beth. And I think we lose sight of that a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
And, in our everyday life gets so busy and there's so many pressures on to really step back and see what students enjoy. When you were speaking about your first point about failure and growth mindset and things, it reminded me of the student that I worked with this year. And I hope you don't mind if I interject a quick story here,
Oh,
but I
absolutely.
really enjoyed working with the student. And one of the first things she told me about herself is that she's tried 15 different sports. And at first I was like, what?
Wow.
So she ended up, I said, talk me through that, why and how. And she was actually worried about that because she didn't want to be seen as flighty on her application, that she wasn't committing to things. But as she talked me through it, she literally went through every sport and explained what she learned about herself in each sport and how that changed how she selected the next one. And it was amazing. It was such an insightful, mature view on what she had done. And that is actually what she ended up writing her essay about. So it like this
Wow.
growth and looking at things and she saw it as failure, trying all these different things, but it actually was success because she learned so much about herself through the process. So really
Right.
interesting to talk to
Right.
some of these students and sort of the way that they look at their growth and exploration. Sometimes they see it as failure, but don't realize that in learning something isn't a good fit for them. It's actually also a win. So it's kind of
Absolutely.
interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it really allows students to, I think about one of the brilliant minds in education, the late Ken Robinson, who said, if students aren't prepared to be wrong, they'll never come up with anything original. So yeah,
Interesting. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. That's a good
yeah,
quote. That's a good
right.
quote. Okay, so there's a couple possible ways that we can do self-discovery and exploration, but one of the ways is an assessment tool. And I know that I use assessment tools and I know you do as well. Can you talk us through what actually an assessment tool is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one part of the process, and there are many different assessment tools out there. We use one called AchieveWorks, which is a series of 4 assessments that we're going to talk about a little more in depth in a minute. But basically, the power of self-discovery and assessment tools is that they can really help a student to you can start a conversation with a student about their strengths, their interests, their learning styles. It's sort of a jumping off point for students, and also really like Renee and I were talking about. It really can lead to some interesting for us as counselors, some interesting insights into the students and the ways that they learn best and how we can best serve them.
I absolutely agree. So let's talk about that AchieveWorks one. That's one that we use at Educational Connections, and I have just about all of my students take it if they're willing to. I
Mhm.
find that the students really enjoy going
Yeah.
over the outcomes together. And as you said, I really like the personality one. I think that's very helpful to me just to learn more about the students. So can you give us like a little bit more information, just so families have an idea of what kind of information we can get out of an assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, the AchieveWorks is a series of 4 assessments. They take 20 to 30 minutes each for the students to complete. And they kind of work. They work in tandem with one another in terms of we get a report in the end that really kind of gives a holistic overview of the student, how they learn best and their interests and so forth. So the first one is a personality assessment, and this is based on the work of Myers-Briggs, and it really helps the students to see what their natural tendencies are and how they prefer to interact and work with others, and how they learn best. So, for example, a student might discover that they really thrive working in groups versus working solo through taking the personality
Hmm.
assessment. The second one is the intelligence, and this is not an IQ test. Intelligence is really focusing on identifying the student's strengths and how they learn best. So are they a visual thinker? Are they a people person? Do they excel with numbers and logic? What are their specific intelligences? And we're going to go into a specific case study on this one in a minute. But the third one is learning and productivity. And this really talks about the environment that the student works best in. So, do they study best with background music, or do they, like me, need it to be completely silent to do their best work and not need any background noise? So, do they need a brightly lit room versus a dimly lit room? So, how they work and learn and are most productive in the settings. The skills assessment really takes a look at what students are already good at and highlights areas that they want to grow in. So strengths, and then areas that need a little help in that. So they might learn, for example, that they are natural leaders and that they are, do well in clubs and sports when they're in a leadership position. But time management, need a little help there. So this is the one I feel that gives me some insight into like how I can best support them with areas that they need to have more support in. So those are the 4 assessments, and again, I like to give all of them and then share a report of a holistic report of each of the areas.
Perfect. That's really helpful. And I know one of our goals today, when you and I were working together on what we were going to put in this presentation today, is to really try to give families some like actual takeaways, things that they can do. So your suggestion, as we were planning, was to put some examples in, which I think is really key. How do we take this information and put it into action? And that's really the next question I get after I do the assessments with students of okay, well, that's great. What do I do now? And sometimes it really confirms a major choice that they already have, and they love seeing that in the career outcomes. Oh, I want engineering, and look, it's all listing in engineering. Like that's very validating to them.
Right,
But for
right.
other students, this can serve as a great jumping off point. So let's talk about our first example, Emily. And Emily has taken the assessments, and then can you walk us through how does she use the assessments to guide her future path?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started working with Emily as a ninth grader and gave her the series of assessments. She scored very high in linguistic intelligence. So she already knew that she loved to write. She already knew that about herself. But it gave her more insight that the level of strength that she had there really gave her kind of the courage or the impetus to join the student newspaper, to take an elective class in creative writing, and then to really move up into more leadership positions within this. So she became the editor. She published. We went sort of beyond high school, and she published some journalistic pieces in We Are Restless and other national student publications. And then went on to win a couple of awards, State Journalism Award, and it really set her up for her college applications. Again, she started early, so she had that foundation. She had things to draw from, and she had a cohesive narrative that ran throughout her high school experience. And she is waiting. Her target school's Northwestern. She's waiting to hear. I think she's gotten into I can't remember. I think she's gotten into Syracuse. She's waiting to hear from others, but definitely majoring in journalism and really excited about the prospects.
This is such an exciting time of year, isn't it, for the seniors? Because every day I'm hearing
Yeah.
from someone I work with about, I was admitted here and I was
I
admitted there.
know.
Like,
I know. It's such, I
yeah,
know. I know. I feel like one of them, like I'm waiting to hear.
I
I think
know.
it's,
I know. We get so invested in what we're doing. And it's so exciting. They spend so much time putting effort into their applications. And so,
right.
yeah, hearing that right now this is one of my favorite times of year.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's sort of switch gears a little bit because we've talked about assessments, we've talked about Achieve Works, but there are other ways for students to explore possible paths. And one of those ways is through real world exploration. Mary Beth, can you tell us, how do you work with your students through real world exploration if that's a path that they want to do in addition to some other things?
Yeah, well, one of the most common questions that I get is, well, how do I get started? I don't know where to start. I know I'm
Hmm.
interested in this certain thing, but what do I do? So, some examples of things that students can get involved with, we've put up here. One is job shadowing, and I really like this one because if you think about the network that you already have your child contact some of those people. Very few people are going to say, no, you can't come in and watch what I do. There's usually a lot of support for high school students who are, taking a real curiosity and a real interest. So job shadowing just for an afternoon or an hour can
Hmm.
really give a student, oh, this is what it's really like to be, in this sort of setting, and gives them real world information to draw from. And it may be like, no, that's not for me, or I really want to pursue this. Travel, reading and research for more introverted students, if they can just get into like really going deep into a topic, a lot of times that's a launching off point for them.
Hmm.
Community service is something that is always suggested and really powerful. We're going to talk about a case study with that in a minute. Having a job, like a lot of times students think that they have to do these things in the summer. Some are just working every summer, and their job can become, a big part of their narrative toward in their
Absolutely.
applications and internships as well. And then solving real world problems, having students look around in their actual environment and say, what are some things that need to be changed that I can be a part of that change? And we're going to talk about, we have a case study with that one as well coming up.
I really like some of the examples you've given here, and I think it's really important, even before we dive into the examples, just to be, thoughtful and mindful. And you already said it, but I want to reinforce that every experience is good experience.
Right.
I think there's so much pressure right now on doing some of these summer programs, or I have to have an internship, or, and I really think that I like the list that you did: reading, research, community service. Like these are all really, really beneficial ways to learn about yourself and start talking about, crafting your personal narrative. I just had a mom email me this morning for a student, and she was asking all different sorts of things that he could do this summer. And, there was a lot of possibilities, but his grades had dipped a little bit sophomore year. So
Mhm.
my question to her was, what will set him up best for success in the fall?
Yes.
So let's talk about that. So, now we're going through those conversations instead of feeling the pressure of everyone else is doing this and I should, what feels right for this student? And I think it's really important to have those conversations as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And taking that word should out of there. Every student is
Yes,
so different and there's
yes,
not one right way. And sometimes they want to know which boxes to check. And there's really not a
yeah.
list. It can be done in so many really ways. And that the main thing is that it's authentic.
Exactly. Yes. And I always tell them at the end of the experience, I want you to tell me, what did you learn from it? How did you grow? How did it change your perspective? Those are important pieces. And you can hit all three of those things in any type of experience.
Right.
Let's go to another example. Maria. I love these examples. I think Maria has a really interesting background and passion. So I think she leaned into community service if I'm not wrong. So how did she
Yeah.
use community service to help define her path forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So Maria is actually a young woman that I met in a different setting. I was actually managing a community garden, which is kind of a thing I have on the side, an avocation, and she came in to volunteer and really became really involved with the garden in a lot of different ways. Not only growing the food, but we had a social justice component attached to the garden where the food was grown and it was then donated to a local shelter
Mm.
for for families, a family shelter. And so she was faithful in coming in and doing volunteer work, but then took it to another level. She started a whole other thing where she was going to other community gardens and gathering their food and backyard gardens and really increased the amount of food that we were able to donate through her efforts. And she really just naturally fell into that, and but it became just a very quiet person, but she just blossomed in the garden. And became a leader. And so that really became a part of her narrative that was very authentic, and it really led her to have a deeper understanding of what she wanted to do. And now she's at the University of Oregon doing a kind of a dual major with sociology and landscape design and working on rooftop gardens. And so I'm really proud
That's
of her.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's always exciting when they find their spark or their
Yeah,
thing and
absolutely.
are able to lean into it.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the other things that I've actually said quite a bit, especially working with students who have ADHD, is that sometimes their hesitancy to jump in is not that they're actually hesitant and they don't want to do it. It's not knowing how to start.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so giving them that tool or that guide to say, let's try this or let's try this can really help them overcome that hurdle. And
Right.
sometimes they really get into it and they're like, okay, that
Yeah.
self-confidence builds. And, even, like the student I had who tried the 15 sports, or, I have many students who have said, oh, I only did this one. I actually had this other student who had a number of things her sophomore year that she tried, and then she leaned into things junior year. And she's like, I'm almost embarrassed to put those on there. I said, it's okay. That's what high school is. It's a journey of exploration, and it might take you some time to find what you're passionate about, but you have to start.
Right.
And
Right.
getting them to that start and getting going is sometimes the hardest part of the whole process.
Yeah, and start can mean very small. It can be very just something like Justin, for example, thought that was going to be really insignificant. Oh, like throwing away
Yes,
the plastic and bringing in silverware. And it wasn't, it was small in the beginning in his mind,
right.
but it became something
And it
really
grew.
significant. Right, right.
Yeah. So what are the key takeaways that you would like families to walk away from this presentation with?
Yeah, well, again, this is not to put more on your plate and make things more stressful. This is to manage the process, reduce the stress, helping students to develop that sense of agency. Um, and I really think using a combination of the assessment tools with actually doing things out in the real world is a really powerful way to help students to get started, to help students to understand, where they want to go with their journey, and to develop the growth mindset, stay wildly curious, and lean into creativity.
I think those are all such great pieces of advice. And I know we really sort of focused yesterday on juniors, and then today was on some of the 8th through 10th graders. But, I want to emphasize here that although starting early is important, and I think it's great when you do, Mary, I'm sure you agree, Mary Beth, like if there's a parent of a junior on the call, it's not too late.
It
It's
is
not too late to
definitely
start
not
that.
too late. It's never too late. It's not too late for adults. We can all start
Right.
all of this at any time, and I have many times as we sort of recreate ourselves. It's never too late.
Right. I agree. I know I have juniors signing on with me right now. And what I normally do with them is say, okay, where are you in the process? And then we make a plan
Mhm.
from today to, November 1st of their junior year, which is a big deadline date typically for early decision and early action. And for every student, that timeline is going to look different. Some we're starting
Right.
here, and other students will come to me with a resume and, summer experience and, all these different things. But we still have this summer between junior and senior year as well to use intentionally, to do
Right.
exploration, to learn about ourselves. So there's so many possibilities. But if you are a parent of a junior, don't hesitate because we've talked about doing this early. There's lots that can be done between now and application season in the fall.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd like to add to that that, sometimes students just don't realize that what they already have, like for a junior or even, early senior year, that what they've done does matter. So through
Right.
conversations, they can realize, oh, I didn't think that that was very significant, but it is. And so we can find those threads, through conversation, through really kind of digging deep into what they've done.
Right. Great point. That's a great point. We've shared a lot today, I know, and we're going to continue to share things throughout the week. And if you're hopefully you're feeling a little less stressed after this, as I said yesterday, but if you're feeling, oh no, now I'm feeling a little more overwhelmed, don't stress over that. You're not alone. And I think college admissions has changed so dramatically from 30 years ago to now that it can be overwhelming for parents. If you're looking for assistance, obviously, certainly we're here to help. If you want to connect with any of our education specialists, the QR code is here that you can scan, or you can go to our website and set up an appointment to meet with one of our education specialists. They're all amazing and they're really great at talking with families about your child and what their needs are and how we can best support them. And then they'll connect you with someone who can support those needs. Mary Beth, can you tell us a little bit about your roster? Are you still available to take students or are you at capacity at this point?
No, I have openings. So please reach
Okay.
out if you're interested in having a conversation. And I do work with all ages of students, not just the
Okay.
younger ones, but juniors and seniors as well.
Great. That's great to know. And thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. It's always
Yeah,
nice to
thank you.
have
Thank you
a
for
minute
having
to sort
me.
of sit back and see actual
Yeah.
real world examples. We are going to go to Q&A now. So if you have any questions that you want to put into Q&A, please feel free to add those in there and we'll start addressing those. As a reminder, Mary Beth and I will also be available on Thursday for a live Q&A. And so any questions you have that come throughout the week about juniors starting early, SAT, ACT, we'll be addressing anything that comes up on Thursday. So please feel free to join us and we would look forward to that. So I'm going to jump into the Q&A, Mary Beth, if that's okay with you,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we'll start covering some of those. Let's get that up here. Okay. So the first one is, what role do you expect parents to play so that your guidance doesn't create resistance or feel like an extension of parental pressure? Ooh, that's a good
That's a
question. Do you
great
want to tackle
question.
that one, Mary Beth?
That's a great question. And it really, it really depends on, and we see this a lot, of just like parents knowing how much should I be involved or not be involved, or, is this going to create a barrier or is it
Yes.
support? So I think every family is so different. I think really following the student's lead is important on this. We want them to develop, again, that growth mindset, which involves a sense of agency. So we want them to know that they are in control of the process, they are in the driver's seat, but that they have support. So the best thing, the thing I recommend with parents is be there to listen, be there to guide, be there to, but you don't need to be in the driver's seat. You need to, and it's hard. I had a daughter who went through this years ago, and it's hard to kind of let go and let them, we don't want them to veer off course. We want to help, but a lot of times helping really means letting go, stepping back a little bit, and knowing your child, knowing your child, so you know when to step in and offer more support.
I absolutely agree. And I'll tell you, many parents will say to me, I'm really glad you're here because I'm telling them something they don't want to listen. Maybe hearing it from a third party
Yeah.
would be helpful. And I really try to work in tandem with the parents and what they're looking for and their goals are for the student. And what I also think is important is that it is when you're meeting with a college counselor, there's a set time that you're designated to talk about this topic. Otherwise, I find that it's sort of easy to kick the can down the road when it's just the parent and the student and
Yeah.
saying, oh, We'll talk about that tomorrow. But when, they have a meeting with me, oh, I have a meeting with Renee tomorrow. So she's expecting me to have A, B, and C done. And I think that
Right.
that sort of drives the process. And I also, when I meet with families, my very first meeting with them, I always tell them, however you want to set up our meetings is fine with me. And that means, do I meet one-on-one with the student? I would say for me, the students that I have, that's probably true about 80% of the time. It's just one-on-one with the student. And then, but there are other families that mom or dad, step parents, I had a grandmother that attended almost all the meetings this past year. If they want to attend these meetings as a family, I'm 100% confident and comfortable with that as well. However they feel best. But I do, like you, after anytime I meet one-on-one with a student, I will send an email to the parents afterwards, a follow-up with everything that we talked
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
because I don't want families to feel like this has to be what they talk about every night at dinner. Like enjoy your your meals together. And I don't
Right.
want the student to feel like they have to be the court reporter when they get off a call either and say, here's, we talked about this and we talked about this. I want to take that pressure off and try to improve the lines of communication instead of adding to the pressure of it.
Right, absolutely. And I think one of the real benefits that I hear from parents all the time is now I'm just allowed to be their parent. We don't have to get into all of this. And I even
Yes,
encourage parents, don't ask constantly, what is your major? What are you doing? Let them
right,
have space around that. And that can really help relationships
right.
as well. So
Yeah, I agree. So the next question is sort of a follow-up from that. Like my other question is, how do you help a sophomore explore interests and strengths without pushing them to make premature decisions or labels?
this is really, it's an art. It really is an art because, well, first of all, that question maybe takes some of that pressure off of yourself. Let them dabble in different things. Let them dip in, knowing that with that growth mindset, even it's not a failure, it's just a redirection. So if they need to redirect, this is why it's important to start early so that is going on. There's freedom to do that early on when they're a little bit
Hmm.
younger. So I think it's a matter of giving them the space to figure out what they want to do. And encouraging but not pushing.
Hmm.
If it's something, it really, again, that student needs to have that sense of agency and self-determination.
I agree. And I think it is a fine balance because there are students who, sophomore year may find something and they're really excited about
Yeah.
it. So you want to encourage that and support that. But I also do understand, like if, I have had parents reach out and say, oh, they're really down this one path, but I'm really wishing they were considering this other path. So
Yeah.
you don't want to close the door on everything, but you do want to support that exploration and find out. And I have students not just explore what are you interested in, where can you take it, but before they're picking their major, what is the long term career outlook for that?
Mhm.
What are the jobs like? If you major in this, what are the possible career paths? I mean, these are really conversations that we can have as well. That isn't always just so short sighted. And really kind of thinking broader. They can be really productive conversations if the student's willing to get into them and explore different things. But when they're a sophomore, I don't encourage students like you have to pick a major. I don't
Yeah.
even really feel that way about students who are juniors and applying. Some are still feeling undecided, and that is okay.
Mhm.
So kind of supporting them where they are, but also making sure that they know it's okay to continue exploring, that you don't
Right.
have to decide on something and close the door. So the next question is, for a student in 10th grade, what's the best way to come up with colleges to explore during spring break? This student in particular is a first generation student who doesn't know where to start. So for me, when I have a student who's starting the process, you can let me know, Mary Beth, if you approach this the same way. For a student who is really, I don't know, I recommend that they look at colleges that are within a 2 to 3 to 4 hour radius of their home. and maybe hit those first before traveling too far away. And look at different size schools, maybe try a small school, a medium, a larger school, depending on what they're interested in. If they know, maybe try a STEM school, maybe try a liberal arts school. Because I think every school visit, you walk away knowing a little bit more. This feels too small. This felt too big. I don't want to take a bus to class. This one's too urban. I don't, I want a more traditional college setting. Oh, the tour guide told me this, and I hadn't even thought about that for college. So, those types of things are, I like to use, especially if they're a sophomore, try to go to some of the local schools that are within a closer distance to home. So you're not committing that travel time and see what you learn from there and use that as a jumping off point to creating a list.
Yeah, I 100% agree with with everything that you just said.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think by having that variety of knowing they might figure out, oh, I really want a small liberal arts school, and then they can extrapolate,
Yes.
and that can be the kind of school that we focus on. Also,
Right.
whether while they're there, I always tell students, go to the cafeteria, go to the door.
Yeah.
If it's anything beyond the tour that they want to see, go see it. Sit in on a
Go see it.
class if you can. Um,
Right.
and get a feel for the campus, and always keep a journal, take lots of photos, do everything, because they can kind of
Yes.
all start to blend together, I think, with tours.
Right.
So
Right.
really keeping a record, and just how did you feel on that campus, and really
Yeah.
taking note of that.
I have to tell you, as a parent, I had this image in my head of like the colleges my kids would go to. Nope, I was totally wrong.
Me too.
Once they started visiting, they're like, "Oh, I love," and I thought this school's way too big for you, but
Yeah,
they loved it.
yeah,
So it really, I had this image in my head of my own college experience, and I realized later that I was trying to put them in my experience, but what they wanted out of school was completely different. And it
yeah.
was so interesting to hear from them, even after they took tours, like what they thought and their impressions and why they liked things or didn't like things. So super interesting.
Yeah, and I think starting tours early is fine, but you have to remember that they're going to be in a much different place probably a
Yes.
year from them, as far as
Yes.
maturity, as far as just feeling comfortable. So I would say, and I was definitely guilty of this, don't do too much with that too early. Kind
Hmm.
of dip in, and then, kind of space it out a little bit. I took my daughter on
Hmm.
a cross country tour that she still resents.
I'm sure you made some
In
good
the
memories
car.
though. All right.
Yeah.
Little shift of gears here, and this was a little bit more leaning towards yesterday, but let's answer it today. It's about student essays, since you and I have both read many. I had a family ask me one time, how many essays, college essays have you read? And I was like, okay, 32 years in admissions, probably 1,000 a year, and I was like,
Yeah.
30,000.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. So how do the essays evaluated in an application? Is there a particular rubric that is used? And I will tell you that will vary by college.
Yeah.
Every college will approach those differently. So that's not easy to go in and say they're looked at this way. The weight and how the weight that they carry in application will vary by school, how they're evaluated. There's some schools now that are using AI to read them. So there's a lot of moving parts going on with the essays right now, but I do think they are an amazing time for a student to shine and share something about themselves. So I don't know that that was a great answer for you, but it's an honest answer is that every school looks at them a little bit differently. And that's one of the things that we help students navigate. We know some schools don't even look at the Common App personal statement, will only look at their supplementals. So there's, lots of different kind of bits we learn over the years working with different colleges and students. So we try to share that, what we know. And some
Yeah.
schools are very upfront about it too, right on their website. They'll tell you, if they use that Common App essay or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And every school is so different. We have to give that answer a lot. It depends on the
Yes,
school, and it
I
really does.
know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. I
So
don't like giving that answer, but it's honest. Yeah.
yeah, but I think with the essays, most readers are looking for information that they can't glean from the application itself. So go
Correct.
beyond that. Go beyond
Great.
that with the essays.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, we're just about out of time here, but we do have two more questions, so I want to address those quickly if we can, Mary Beth.
Mhm.
How do you figure out your kids' genuine interests versus interests they feel like they should have, or
Mhm.
as a parent, I feel like they should have? Ooh, that's a good one. I'll let you tackle that one first.
That is a good one. And I mean, that's really kind of what we addressed today of helping them to, what would they be doing anyway? What did they maybe think back to when they were younger? What were they interested in before school and society and friends became noise for them?
Hmm.
And helping them to figure that out. Also, the pressure of thinking that they have to have it figured out early on, I think it's a
Right,
detriment to them feeling the freedom to explore. We want them to have focus, we want them to have a path, but it can't be forced. Um,
right, right.
so that's a great question. And for that one, I think, every kid is different, just like every school is different. So knowing the dynamics there is, important. So what do you have?
For me, in helping students figure this out, it's the question why. When
Yeah.
they say I'm interested in engineering, why?
Yeah.
My mom wants me to consider computer science. Why? Why are you interested in it? Why are you not interested in it? So having those questions, and I can't tell you how often I ask the question of students why, and they actually don't have an answer to it.
Yeah.
And that to me is telling me somebody's been saying in their ear, you should, hey, so and so is doing this. Maybe I should think about that. So I always tell students when I'm working with them, this is one of our first meetings. I will say to them, please know that this is a safe space. You can ask me absolutely anything in these meetings, and there will be zero judgment.
Yeah.
So if your friends are talking about something and you don't know what that is, you feel like everybody else is talking about, and you're not there, let's talk about that. But I am going to ask you the hard questions. And if you don't have an answer to them, my next thing will be, okay, let's figure out how we're going to get you answers to those questions. And I might do some lead in, like interest in engineering. I don't know why. Okay, do you like your science classes? Do you like math classes? Do you like tinkering things? Are you a student who loves Legos? Like sort of
Mhm.
asking those questions. And when they start answering them, then they're like, oh yeah, these are all reasons why. But they couldn't articulate that.
Right.
And, sometimes they will come out and say, it's because somebody told me I should consider it. So doing that exploration and having some of those conversations. There are many times, especially with 8th, 10th graders, my meetings might be just talking and learning about them and making them feel comfortable about where they are and making a plan about how to go forward. I think that sort of eases the stress a little bit.
Right.
Those are some of my
Absolutely.
favorite meetings. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love when we get into the application process too, because I think that's fun. But like really digging into what they're interested in can be really rewarding, I think, in working with
Yeah.
students. Okay,
Yeah.
one last question. My child resists or gets disengaged after some time, especially if I challenge him for some reason, for some research, leadership opportunities, internships. How do I adapt rather than push? This approach doesn't work for us. And, as a parent, I understand completely. Um, for me, I think sometimes having a third party, like a college counselor, um, advising those things
Mhm.
is helpful because they're hearing it from someone else. I do think, though, as well, you also have to think about where are they in the process and, why are they disengaging? Is it
Yeah.
truly something they're not interested in, but I want them to continue to pursue? Or did they run in a roadblock and they're not sure where to go next? But taking on those leadership roles and thinking about that is also sort of challenging to navigate too, because oftentimes people think about leadership roles being a named position. I am the captain, I am the co-founder, I am, the president. But I also emphasize to students that leadership roles can happen even when you're a member on a team. As a past admissions officer, anytime I saw a student participate in something for 4 years, 3, even 2 years, they were a leader there. You don't have to be the senior patrol officer in Boy Scouts to be a leader in Scouts if you have been a member there. Naturally, you're going to be looked to as someone who has been involved, who knows things. So take those small opportunities to show your leadership, and those can also be ways that they can explore that without having to have a formal named leadership role, because not everybody is interested in.
Yeah. 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 I absolutely agree. And I think you touched on when and why are they disengaging? Like, why is that happening? And if you can kind of understand that, are they really like, again, are they really not interested, or do they think it's too hard? Are they afraid of failing? Why is that?
Right.
And that really takes, talking about it. And sometimes I know as a parent myself, sometimes, my daughter would rather talk to somebody else about it than mom and dad,
I
at
know.
that
I
age,
know.
at that age, they'll come back around.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. That's true. That's
yeah.
true. It's true. All right. I want to thank you, Mary Beth, for joining us. So very grateful to have you here
Thank
today
you.
and sharing all of your wisdom with us. It was really, really helpful.
It was a pleasure.
And I want to encourage everyone to join us tomorrow when we're going to be focusing on testing. Pete is going to be joining us, and Pete is truly an expert on testing. I learn something from him every time I present with him, and I'm so excited to hear what he has to say tomorrow. Lots of changes in testing over this past year. So I hope to see everyone there, and I want to thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you tomorrow, and then maybe on Thursday as well when Mary Beth and I will be doing the Q&A.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.